hold your name again.
No.
When I say that.
You get it. If we don't, if we correct your name, maybe you can't, maybe only people.
Maybe.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Sydney.
Just want to, I know Ken Story is coming on to do the first part, so let me just make sure I know everybody who's going to be here.
Sydney, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So I'm running for the library trustee position. When that's over, should we log out and then go into the public one to watch the other?
So
watch the
you
school?
don't,
No.
you don't have to worry about a thing. I'll move people in and out as we go through each position. So you're actually up first. So after that one's over, I'll just move everybody to what would be an attendee role.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I think we're just looking for Pat Beasley. Let me just see.
She sometimes comes on as Lila Beasley. I don't know if she's popped up.
Hello, can you hear me, Sydney?
Hey, Ken, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Just fine.
Good.
We're just waiting for Pat Beasley to join us. And then
Great.
I was telling everybody I'm going to hand it over to you. And as we go through each position, I'm going to move people over to attendee. So it's just
Okay.
the people for that position, and then I'll switch for the next one.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to give her a few more minutes, Ken, or if you want to get started because it's 7. I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, and who are we waiting for? I'm sorry.
We're waiting for Pat Beasley.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have not heard from her regarding whether or not she's coming or not coming. It
Okay.
looks like she's coming. Here we go.
There we go.
There she is.
I'm
All
just
right,
gonna,
so
I'm gonna start
Sydney-
moving people over who are not for our first position, which is for the library trustee.
okay, all right. All right, so what we have, as everyone probably knows, we have basically 2 positions for library trustee available, and we have 3 candidates. And the ballot for library trustee, we have Pat Beasley, Megan Alexander, and David Munger. So Sydney, I think you had sent out a link about information. You said that each person gets about 5 minutes to
Yes.
sort of talk about themselves and their interest in the job. Is
Yep.
that correct?
Yep. And then we were just gonna, after that introduction, open it up to questions, if that's all right with
Okay,
you.
no, and what we've done in the past is each of the candidates speaks, does their 5 minutes, and then we have questions for that position. And then once that's done, then we move on to the next position. So, okay. So basically then, on the ballot, is in the order that the names appear on the ballot, Pat is first. So Pat, why don't you go ahead?
Alrighty, I'm going to start just by reading what I gave to the news. My name obviously is Pat Beasley. I'm running for my second 3-year term and as a library trustee. My husband and I have lived in Grantham for 15 years, and I've always been an avid supporter of the library. I've been a volunteer. I was on the board of Friends of the Dunbar Free Library, and then I decided to get really involved. If that wasn't involved enough, I ran for trustee. For 3 years, I've really enjoyed being a part of it. I think that the library is such an integral part of our town, and I think it needs to continue to be. And we need to make it something that we all put some effort and work into, because Dawn and staff cannot do it alone. And I think in the past 3 years, the board, I can't say that I personally have done any one single thing. I've done some projects, yes, and they've been singular. One was singular, kind of took a little while. But I think the important part is the team, because the library trustees work in concert with Dawn, who works in concert with the staff. And it's really an amazing experience to watch all of us with the same goal, sometimes different objectives, but that's okay too, but the same goal. And so I'm asking that you re-elect me for another 3-year term.
Thank you, Pat. Very good. So then, 1 second. Next on the ballot is Megan Alexander. So Megan, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Megan Alexander, and I am running for my second term as a trustee for the Dunbar Free Library. My husband and I moved to Grantham in 2006, and our 2 children attend GBS currently. And the library to me is something special, similar to what Pat said. Maybe like some of you, when I first moved to Grantham, my connection with the community was primarily limited to the post office and Rumbrook. But I shortly after discovered the library and the wonderful staff and volunteers there. And the library is just the heart of this community. They're always welcoming and really helping to create connections and create that community that we love Grantham for. This past year obviously has been crazy, and I have watched the library staff really rise to the occasion. They've challenged themselves. They've found new ways to offer programs and services and new formats, and it has been a pleasure to support them in that role. For the past 3 years, I've been the board's treasurer, and I've loved that work. And I am currently working on a project which is cataloging and assessing the library's physical systems to create a facility management plan. I would like to continue my work with the board, and I look forward to future projects that will support the library as it moves, meeting the needs of the future Grantham needs, community needs. Anyway, thank you. I'd love to run again.
Thank you, Megan. All right, David, you are up.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm David Munger. I'm actually new to Grantham. I moved here last May with my wife. I had originally moved to the Upper Valley about a year ago, or a year before that, where I started a fellowship at Dartmouth, and then I stayed on as staff in interventional radiology there. My goal for running for the Dunbar Free Library trustee was, number one, to get involved in the community. When I moved here, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and there, as Megan had said, like my extent of the community involvement is the post office and talking to people there. But I've always loved libraries. As a medical student and college student, I lived in the library. I think libraries are the center of where all good learning happens. And I think that anything we can do to build community and preserve community, including the library, is very important. And I would just like to get involved and help with that. Even if I don't become elected a trustee, I would still be volunteering and involved as soon as the library opens up again. I think it's the center of a community, and I think it needs to be preserved and protected.
Thank you,
I'll keep it
David.
short.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you to all the candidates. And so, Sydney, if you're there, I don't know. I'm not Zoom literate enough to know how to invite people to come and ask questions, but we certainly would invite anybody who's in on the call to ask questions of David, Megan, or Pat.
Okay, that's great. I have one question ready that came in through the Q&A, and it's for all three candidates. What do you see as the primary challenge facing the library in the next 3 years? And what do you see as some potential solutions?
All right, well, Pat, why don't you go ahead?
Post-COVID, I think, is going to be a big one. And I think post-COVID is going to encompass some areas that might have been problematic even before. As much as I don't always like it, technology seems to play a larger role in our lives. And we have just instituted some technological things, programs at our library this past year that will serve us well in terms of computers talking to each other all across the country and being able to avail ourselves of different services as they become available. And then the other thing is, I guess, just that we know there are people out there that could benefit from our services, and we would love to share our services with them. And so I think we're making a really concerted effort to expand communication to as many members of Grantham and anybody else that would like to be involved in that, to really, so that they're up to date on what we're offering and what resources we can help them find or help just provide them with. And I think those two areas are communications and technology are going to be two biggies for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Pat. Megan, how about you?
Well, a library is no longer just books. A library is a place where groups meet. It's a place where you can go in and check out a physical book. You can get out a movie, but it's also become a bit of a hub for access to information. And so as we start to integrate perhaps more digital aspects into the library, just kind of integrating that and keeping the library current to what everyone needs. For instance, something we've noticed an increase of in the library over the whole last year has been access to digital books and audio books available online. And so I think one of the future challenges as the library is staying relevant as a physical place, so you have that sense of community, but also offering the resources that the public is looking for. And the ways that we have found out about some new things, it's amazing the connection all the libraries have to each other. So sometimes one library is trying out something and everyone hears about it. And so you kind of weigh the pros and cons of each one, both in costs and in desire for it in our community itself. So I would say the number one challenge for the library going forward is staying relevant as the community's needs change for sources of information.
Thank you, Megan. David, how about you?
I would agree with what everyone has said so far. I think the biggest thing that I see for the future is getting people to use technology in a efficient and smart way. I read a study the other day that talked about more people today get their news from like Facebook and other sources like that, as opposed to real media, and we're not necessarily teaching our kids how to do appropriate research online and get validated sources. And I think the library would play a vital role in teaching people and teaching our young people what's out there and how to get appropriate and factual information moving forward. And the other thing I think that goes along with it is just trying to get people to appreciate to still use books. I think audiobooks and ebooks are wonderful. I use those when I'm on vacation a lot, but there's something wonderful about sitting down and reading a book, and I would just like to instill that in anyone I can.
Thank you, David. Sydney, do we have more questions?
I don't see any currently pending. I don't know if you want to do another call out to see if anybody would like to ask anything else. You can ask by raising your hand or putting something in chat or using the Q&A.
Okay, well, does anyone out there that's any of our participants have any more questions of our candidates for the Dunbar Free Library Trustee? Well, Sydney, I'm not hearing or seeing anything else, so I think we are ready to move on to the next town candidate.
Okay, great. Thank you. It'll just take me one quick second to make this switch with all of our people.
All right, and thank you all. Thank you to all our candidates.
And there you go.
All right, thank you, Sydney, very much. So we have our next position on the town ballot for which we have a contested race is trustee of the trust funds. It's a 3-year term. We have 1 vacancy and we have 2 candidates. We have in order on the ballot, we have James Walkerman and Maria Dahlman. So James, you are first on the ballot. So again, 5 minutes to kind of tell us about yourself and your interest in the position, please.
Thank you. My name is Jim Walkerman, and I've reviewed the minutes of the various meetings of the trustees of the trust, and quite impressive. I know that Maria Dahlman is an experienced and conscientious trustee, and as she is noted of the other 2 trustees, Evan Wheeler has only been on the board for about a year, and Donna since October, Donna Matson. So re-electing her will provide continuity and retain institutional knowledge. I'm assuming that she gets along with the other trustees and the secretary, and we're fortunate that she's willing to serve another term. So why I'm a candidate is when I read the blurb in the Grantham News that the town might be looking for volunteers to fill positions, I thought that they might be hard to fill, and I didn't realize that it was going to be a contested election. I should have known better, because when my wife Karen went down to pick up the materials to fill out an expression of interest, the staff person at the town building told her, "Oh, we already have a candidate for that position." So that should have told me something. But I think competition's a good thing, and I've always been involved in the communities that we've lived in. However, it's been 40 years since I've been a candidate for public office. My wife said I was qualified, and as an attorney and a trustee for several private trusts, that I'd do a good job. But I think her real motive was to get me out of the house. We've been locked down this last year with the COVID, and I've been hunkered down in my office in the basement of our house in the makeshift office. And my social life has been introducing myself to people at doctors' offices, waiting rooms, and at the post office. So I think she wants to have me go out and do something in the community, because even the dog's tired of looking at me. So in short, in the unlikely event that I'm elected, I will be conscientious, learn the ropes, attend the meetings regularly, and be a conscientious trustee. And if not, then I'll learn more about the town and serve in another capacity, hopefully in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Maria?
Well, good evening, everybody. And Jim, thank you for your nice thoughts and comments. I appreciate it. I am running for re-election of the trustee of the trust fund, because I really do love working with numbers, and we have a lot of numbers to work with. I do apologize. I seem to have come with a case of laryngitis. So if you're having trouble hearing me, just let me know.
Sure.
So anyway, thank you. Got here. Prior to moving to New Hampshire 6 years ago, I was actively involved in our town in New Jersey, and mostly, with my church, Little League organization, and booster clubs. in a monetary sort of treasurer capacity. And in August of 2017, I just happened to be going into town hall and I saw a posting for the trustee of the trust funds. And I was just getting ready to retire. And I thought, oh, because it's something I can do. So I went in, got the job description, looked at it and said, well, given my organizational background and the fact that I was a senior vice president at JP Morgan Chase, as well as Bank of America, strong organizational skills, maybe a little too anal sometimes when it comes to numbers. I thought this is something I can do. So I put my application in. I was approved by the select board. And that was in September of 17. And then in 2018, March, that is, I was elected to my position. And as Jim pointed out, this past year, the two long-serving trustees decided to retire, which means I, who was the first term trustee, now was the longest serving trustee. And although I'm trying to mentor Evan Weaver and Donna Matson, it's a lot of learning to do. One thing I have done is I have gone to two conferences sponsored by the New Hampshire Municipal Association for the Charitable Trust Unit, and they have given us a lot of direction as to our roles and responsibilities, which has helped a lot. So in my mentoring process with the current trustees, I'm relying upon a lot of that information I've received when I've gone to these seminars. Since Donna and Evan are fairly new, I am still responsible for the monthly reconciliation of the 47 trust fund accounts, along with the preparation and distribution of the monthly trust fund reports to the town, the SAU, as well as to the Village District of Eastman. In addition, I am responsible, given my banking background, I'm responsible for drafting the investment policy, which we did revise. And I also reach out to various financial institutions to find a best rate we can get on the money that's being invested. As a trust fund, we are required by law to only put our money with an organization approved by the state of New Hampshire or a federally chartered or state chartered bank, which means it can't be ledgered, it cannot be like Sunapee now, whatever their new name is. So we reach out to credit unions and various banks, and then also look at some other possible investments that are approved by the state of New Hampshire. However, most of those are not guaranteed. And so we've been tending to stay with banks because those are guaranteed funds. The bottom line is I really enjoy being a trustee and feel I've added a lot to the group, but as I said, it's all of who you know, and I just hope that I am reelected. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Maria. Sydney, we seem to have lost Jim on the screen.
I just noticed that. I'm hoping he'll sign back in. I'm not sure
Okay.
where he must have clicked something by accident.
Oh, okay. Well, so basically then, thank you both. Do we have any questions for Jim or Maria?
We do have a question from Rob Fogg, and so he's gonna speak directly.
Is he on mute? He is on mute. Unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think so.
Basically, my question is more for the Board of Selectmen than it is for either of the two candidates. I've known Maria ever since I was a trustee of trust funds for 10 years. So I know what she's capable to do. I don't know Jim, but I do know that the town always is in need of qualified people to do jobs like trustee of trust funds. So my question to the Board of Selectmen is, why only 3? Other places, larger places, have 5. And I don't think there's anything in the law that limits the town to having only 3. Now, I could be wrong in that. and maybe somebody will again correct me. But as well as much as I admire Maria, I also acknowledge the fact that it would be a waste to throw away Jim. And if he's interested in doing it, why not have 4 trustees? Having said that, I will bow out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any other questions for either Jim or Maria?
There's one more here, Ken, for Maria.
Okay.
It says, Maria, could you please give us an example of the trust funds?
There are 47 trust funds. The bulk of them are, I should say the bulk, about 53% are the town, about 40% are the Village District of Eastman, and then the remainder is the SAU 75. The SAU 75 is comprised of funds for a playground, scholarships, things along that line. They only have like 7 or 8, actually 7 trust funds. The town has trust funds for example, you want to buy a new fire engine. So as opposed to expending all the money in one year, every year, a certain amount is allocated to a trust fund to build it up. So over time that grows, and then you don't have just to write a check for 500,000, if you will. And various, as I said, for computer equipment, the question is building up funds over time to basically level out, if you will, the expenditures of the town. In the case of Village District of Eastman, they do have a lot of accounts set up for the sewer and the water. And there's maintenance, there's software, there is building situations. So when they raise funds from assessments or whatever, those go into the various funds. So Eastman in turn will go and pay those out to, as opposed to hitting each member of the community, the HOA is leveled out over time. Does that answer the question? And there's $3.8 million, by the way, in trust funds.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any other questions for Jim or Maria?
I don't see anything, and I don't see that Jim has signed back in yet.
Oh, okay. Well, if we have no more questions for them, then thank you to all our candidates for the town that participated this evening. And Sydney, I'm going to turn it over to you now for the school. I'm going to listen in, but I am no longer a panelist, I believe. So,
okay, I will move you over, and thanks
Thank you.
again for everybody's patience as I change the panelists here. Okay, Carl, I think you have everybody.
Very good. We can't see you, Sydney, but that's okay.
Oh, that's okay. I'm on these Zoom things quite enough. I'm sure everybody is fine with just my name.
Okay. Well, my name is Carl Hanson. I'm the moderator of the school district, and we have 4 candidates for 2 positions for the school board. I guess I will recognize you to speak for a few minutes about who you are and the reason that you're running. I have a few bios from you, and I'm just going to go in the order of the bio. So I'll recognize Ed Upson first. Tell us about yourself and why you're running.
Sure, thank you. So name's Edward Upson. I've lived in Grantham for just over 2 years now. Have a daughter in 3rd grade, and we live in Eastman with our daughter and 3 kids. Worked at a company called EDF Renewables for the past 6 years as their director of finance. EDF does a lot of solar installations for municipalities and utilities. Basically, I'm interested in joining the board because I think we're about to embark on some very interesting times coming out of the pandemic. Not to say that we haven't been in interesting times for the last year, but I think we spent a lot of time focusing on the safety needs and all the needs of the kids to make sure they feel safe and secure in school. And as we come out of this and as we move forward and we get back to being in school full time, I believe there's going to be a lot of stuff that they've missed in the past year. Stuff like socialization with their kids, relationship building. So I see the next year plus as an opportunity to sort of gain in that area. And I'm looking forward to be part of a board that, will help drive that forward.
Very good. Thank you. And next I'll recognize Christopher Barrett. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Sure. My name is Chris Barrett. My wife and I are New Hampshire natives. We moved to Eastman in 2017. We have 4 kids, 2 at GBS now, 2 that are looking forward to joining the Big Sisters, which I said in my bio. A little bit about me. I did 12 years of parochial school growing up, which actually gave me the appreciation for the culture of public school, because it made me realize how much more prepared for society my friends were than I was from the homogenous culture that was parochial school. I graduated UNH with a degree in history and the University of Oklahoma with a master's in international relations. And I have been at home with the kids since our oldest was born. And my main reason for joining the board running for the board, is trying to give back to the community and keep, a parental voice on the board and just advance the GVS and the school district in towards the future.
Okay. Thank you very much. And next we have my neighbor, Tonya Mcintyre. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing or why you're running for the board?
Sure. So I was a parent. I am a parent. My children are now out of the K through 12 system. However, their experience in Grantham left quite an impression on us as a family. So Grantham School was in and out of my children's lives. And they had some situations in their lives that needed other things than Grantham could offer at the time. So we had the experience of taking them to private institutions and found that for them, and that was an appropriate thing. So my experience coming to the Grantham School Board and asking for help with this situation was very, as I said in my bio, it created this ironic partnership that forced us to become the mission of the school. We became critical thinkers, we became creative learners, and we became independent problem solvers because we had to. And it was really interesting to be in that world because there was quite a few of us that were in, there's 12 or 15 of us that were in that carpooling and trying to get our kids to school. And through it, we learned, or I learned, how to knock on doors and how to get information and where to get information. And I amassed a lot of information. And I guess for me, I'd love to be able to share that with the Grantham community, with the Grantham School District itself, because I really believe that one of the duties of the school board is to provide for all the children in the district. And knowing that we have such a great school in Grantham, we also have families that need other things. So I would be the person, I think, that would be able to really give a lot of options as far for parents that maybe their child does not, for whatever reason, needs something else besides what is offered by the Grantham or the area agreement. And so, and one of the big issues for us was this concept that what we were asking for was going to cost too much money. And so I put together in my bio the money, the finances. And I know when some of the provisional legislation went through, the legislators were looking for what it was going to cost, the actual figures. So I have given these figures that I have to the legislator and to the Commissioner of Education, and they have thanked me for it and in showing that it's really not, an appropriate education is not more expensive than the public school. And it really, I'm hoping that some of these figures will put the naysayers, quiet them. And I would love to be able to just see Grantham students thrive in, and we could brag, just like people brag about, their football teams. We could brag about the fact that Grantham, because it's uniquely situated, less than an hour away from many of the finest schools in the nation, can send their kids to these schools and support the families here. So that's kind of why I want to run.
Okay. Thank you, Tonya. And finally, I will recognize Leslie Nesbit, who's currently sitting on the board. So,
thank you, Carl. Thanks, everyone. It's great to see so many community members invested in this process. It's been an honor to serve the town of Grantham as a school board member these last 3 years, and I'm hopeful to be able to serve for another 3 years if the voters so choose. As a current GBS parent with 2 decades of experience as an educator and administrator, I'm uniquely positioned within the current board to help steward the district's efforts in enabling each Grantham student to thrive and succeed. We face truly unique and unprecedented academic and social emotional challenges within our district in the coming weeks, months, and years, and therefore need thoughtful, passionate, and dedicated public servants at every level of local government. I've worked hard in my 3 years to listen to all community stakeholders in order to see both the details and the big picture of how to move forward with the greatest good in mind. And I hope you'll choose to re-elect me on March 9th. Thank you.
thank you. So with that, I will open it up if there are any questions. You can either use the Q&A or the chat. And I see one question. There's a question from Jeff Walla as follows. Oftentimes the school board made up of 5 individuals with differing views will debate issues and positions, but must ultimately make a decision which may not always be unanimous and may be contrary to your personal view or position. My question for each candidate: when this happens, will you publicly support the school board's decision, even if it may be contrary to your personal position? And if so, why? And if not, why not? So I guess we'll just go in the order that we started off with. Ed, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think absolutely I would support the school board's decision if it ran contrary to my personal position. One of the unique things about school boards is no one person on the board really has authority. It's the board itself that has the authority. So while healthy debate is always good, and differing views are important in these discussions, and I think once the board makes a decision, it's in the best interest of the community and the school and everyone involved to, get on board with that and, put all their effort into moving that forward and doing the best we can.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes, I would agree with Ed. I would support the school board and the decision that was made because it's important to actually show how the board came to the agreement, which would be, shown through the meeting, and it would be obvious the objections that were raised, and that is why the board would be, I have loud kids in the background, God bless them. So supporting the school board decision would be, yes, it would be something that I would definitely do. Excuse me.
Thank you. If you need to run, feel free to. Tonya.
Supporting the school board's decision against my personal decision. I mean, we'd run into this on the zoning board. So there's times that, in zoning, not everybody agrees, but we end up making a decision as a board, and that's the decision that's made. So usually but I also know on the zoning board, we have some pretty good discussion about stuff. And so it's important that the board knows the options. And I've always believed that as long as you have all the options and you can pick and have discussion about the different options and how they will affect not the options won't affect the decision, but the decision will affect how those options come into play. So you pick your options and you go with it, and then yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And Leslie?
Well, I have the benefit as the incumbent of pretty much every person I can see in the list of attendees and on this call has at least been in one board meeting or on our Zoom meetings, and has seen me at times raise challenging issues, opinions, but also seen me vote with my board members when it was important to do so. And I think Chris said it, that, healthy debate, and Ed said it too, healthy debate is really important. It's important to air these issues out. We've had to grapple with a lot on the school board in the last year. It's coming up on exactly a year. And so that dialogue, public dialogue, is incredibly important. And that's the way that we air out the different sides of an agreement. I mean, at different sides of an issue. And then I do think it's very important, and I've experienced this, that it's important to show a united front and to back each other as a board and to back the school district. So, yeah. And people on the call have also seen me not vote in lockstep with the board when I felt that it was an important moment, not only in terms of making COVID related decisions, but there have been one other time when I didn't vote in lockstep with the board because I felt there was a really important moral issue at stake. So my record can speak for itself.
Thank you. Okay. I hope that answered Mr. Wall's question. Another question, this is from James Walksman, and this is for all the candidates. Given what we know about the pandemic today, if you are a school board member voting for remote, hybrid, or in-person instruction, can you share what your vote would be today? And Sydney wants to chime in on that.
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, you want to have that question go live. Can you do that?
Yeah, basically, I just clicked answer live, which means that we're not going to type in the answer because the candidates will just speak.
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I don't understand the technology.
Carl,
So,
this is 2 nights in a row. We're going to be pros at this, okay?
I don't know. It's an uphill battle. So I'm going to reverse the order and start with Leslie on this one, just to throw everybody off.
Again, this is a relatively easy one for me since the Grantham public has seen my voting record and my opinions voiced in meetings, and even in the last time that we were talking about our instructional model, we grappled with 4 or 5 days, and I'm a huge proponent of as many school days in person as possible. I'm proud of what the district has done with the 4-day model, and I'm hoping that as numbers continue to trend significantly downward, that we might be looking into 5 days as soon as possible. But that will come, I think, in our March board meeting, whether I'm there or not.
Okay. And Tonya?
Can you repeat the question, Carl? I kind of.
Sure. It's on the chat if you want to look at that. Well, I'm sorry. It's on the Q&A. Yeah. And it says, given what we know about the pandemic today, if you are a school board member voting for remote, hybrid, or in-person instruction, what would your vote be today?
Well, I think it would involve a conversation with the board and what the recommendations are from the state, and then make a decision. So I'm not quite sure what he's after, but I get, like, if it was today, I'd probably keep it hybrid.
Okay. Thank you.
If that's the question, I'm not sure, but.
Okay. And Chris?
Leslie spoke beautifully about it. I agree with her wholeheartedly, and that's essentially what I would say as well. As much interaction in person that kids can have, the better. Obviously, safety must be paramount, but it's so vital to make sure the kids are in school as much as possible. So safely as we can do that, and as quickly as we can do that, would be beneficial to all.
Okay, thank you. And Ed.
I mean, this is an interesting one, because personally, I would rely on, you know, our 2 top educators, Kristen and Sydney, on, you know, sort of what their guidance would be. I don't think there's anyone on this call, or, you know, anyone, you know, with kids in school that do not want their kids back 5 days a week. That being said, I think, you know, you really have to rely on your professionals and the people that you've hired to do this job to guide you in telling you what they think the best course of action is. You know, so without input from them at the moment, I would probably say the 4-day schoolwork would be what I would vote for, but again, it would really depend on the recommendations from Kristen and Sydney.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from, this is from Becca Swope. And I guess this is for all of the candidates. How do you view spending public tax dollars to send Grantham kids to private schools? I understand there's some proposed legislation down in Concord. So start with Leslie, I guess.
I'm a product of New Hampshire public schools myself, and have worked mostly in private schools in my career. So it's a really interesting contrast for me. As someone who's been an educator and senior administrator at schools, I've seen a lot of outcomes, and I've seen a lot of trajectories for students. And I'm not going to equivocate. I feel very, very strongly about funding public schools in New Hampshire properly. And I do believe that the current legislation that's been proposed threatens what is already a fairly fragile system of supporting public education in this state. It's part of what makes us great, and I have real concerns about taking tax dollars out of town systems and out of public education and spreading them to private schools.
Okay, thank you. And Tonya?
As I said in my opening statement, I've had experience with both public and private. And for the percentage of children that need to go to private schools or need that particular structure that is provided in any given school that their parents decide is working for that child, I believe that our community is obligated by the compulsory education laws to take care of that child. And so if that's sending public money to private schools, I don't think so. I think it's sending public money to support the public children that live in our district to go to the educational establishment that is effective for them. So that's what I would, I feel very strongly about that.
Thank you. And Chris?
I believe the public school dollars should stay in the public school system. It's fairly simple to me, unless there is a very special case where something was necessary. It is public school dollars that should stay within the public school system. And just very simple for me.
Okay. And Ed?
I think I would agree with that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I don't support sending tax dollars to private schools. I think it causes equity issues with kids in school. The other piece that is to be considered on this is the current public school system. Majority of the budget is a fixed budget, which means, doesn't matter if you have 100 kids going or you have 500 kids going, the vast majority of the budget's going to be what it is. So if you start chipping away at that, all of a sudden, I think you're going to have much more cost on your hands than I think people initially intend or believe they will have.
Okay. Thank you. There's one question from an anonymous attendee that I think I can answer. How many openings are there in the school board this year? And the answer is 2. Okay. So we can take care of that one. There's a question from someone named Dick. For all candidates, what are the one or two most critical issues that our school system will be facing in the next few years? And why are you the best to help with those issues? So I'll start with Ed.
I mean, I think personally that the number one critical issue is the kids transitioning back to some sense of normalcy after a year plus of the pandemic that we've been in, and sort of the isolations that can come from that. So, supporting kids emotionally, helping them with the relationship building. I think that's going to be priority number one as kids transition back. As for why I'm the best to help with those issues, I mean, I think I'd be dedicated to that cause. It's probably the best I can say. I'm by no means a psychologist or an educator by any means. So really just knowing that my dedication will be 100% backed by the helping the social emotional needs of the kids.
Thank you. And Chris?
Along the lines of what Ed said, trying to work with the staff and faculty and students to I guess, unify the GVS community because it was a phenomenally interactive community before. The community has stayed engaged as best we can, through Zoom and everything. But to get back to the closest resemblance to what we had before would be wonderful. And I think the reason why I would be the best for that, if we're using that, I'm invested, first grader and a third grader, and 2 more on me. We have no plans of leaving anytime soon. So their success and the success of the school is vitally important to myself and obviously everyone.
Okay. And Tonya?
So for me, because my kids are gone there and gone through, and everybody's kind of given their resume of how long they've lived here, and I haven't lived here that long, but my family, the one I'm married to, has. And so for me, when I go to the GVS school, I take a look at the right, and up on the hill there's a cemetery where all of their grandparents and great grandparents have been buried, and all of their relatives, and basically that's the family plot. And so when I look at the school, I see the wood ceiling in the gym that, great grandpa's lumber company put there, who built the school, and all of this. And I see that the school has become this entity that's kind of forgotten, that is part of the Grantham community, not just the Grantham Village School community. And I think that's a critical issue because there are people in this district that support this school that aren't really part of it and feel very excluded from it and from the process of making decisions about it. And so for me, I would like to incorporate and bring back some of the wisdom and the history that has gone into the Grantham Village School. And I think that is a critical issue that the school needs to address. And the other critical issue is when these kids come back and after their parents have been educating them, and after they've had this experience where there are lots of options, that they're going to want to take advantage of some of those options. And although there's social and emotional issues, my children had a problem with reading and writing. And so for me, it wasn't so much, yes, they had some social issues, but they also, and those were caused because they couldn't read and they couldn't write and they didn't fit in. And so there had to be decisions made on behalf of our children, and not just the ones that go there, but all of them, to include them into the community that we live in, which is the entire Grantham community. So I think a critical issue is how are we going to bring forth policies to cover all of the children in the district, not just the ones that go to the public school.
Okay, thank you. And Leslie?
So as I referred to in my opening statement, we are facing truly unprecedented challenges, academic and on the academic and social emotional front. And I think the way that I would describe the critical challenges facing the district is that we need to keep equity in academics, social emotional health front of mind, because the pandemic, even in our small town, which compared to other parts of the US is somewhat homogeneous, there are huge disparities in how students experience the pandemic, what their parents have had to cobble together, endure, what the children have had to cope with. And so as we look forward into how Grantham Village School and all of our students K through 12 go back to the new normal, we're going to have real issues of equity in terms of meeting kids where they are and helping them progress, helping them get back to where they can be. And it's like I said, it's not only social emotional, it's also academic. And I've spent so much time in this year thinking about the different kids that I know personally in the district. So why we're all in different ways qualified to address these challenges. My unique qualifications, I have the benefit of being an incumbent with 3 years experience, so very closely in the know of how we decisions so far and what we're facing. I know that my experience both in public schools and in private schools also positions me to know about best practices across the board, having seen lots of different approaches. I've worked in basically with all age students, ages 5 now to graduate students, young adults. And so I've seen a lot of different academic approaches to addressing disparities. And I've seen a lot of different approaches to building social emotional capacity and resilience in students. So those are the challenges I see.
Thank you. Let me see. I'm trying to juggle the chat and the Q&A and make sure I'm getting people. Mary Ellen DeJong has asked all the panelists, please identify 3 skills that you feel will make you the best candidate for the board. So I'll start with Leslie this time.
3 skills. Okay. One, I believe, is my capacity to listen carefully. I have a lot of experience, especially as a senior administrator in a number of schools, listening to all different stakeholders and trying to, again, like I mentioned in my opening statement, see the details and see the bigger picture. And that requires careful listening. It requires oftentimes putting your personal feelings and opinions to the side and trying to listen with a really clear mind. So I have a lot of practice doing that. I like to think that I've shown that as a board member so far. Secondly, I'm also someone who is in the business of, in my roles as a senior administrator, making data-informed decisions as often as possible. So that's kind of a nice complement to being a careful listener to all stakeholders, is also reading a lot, taking in as much information as I can, looking at numbers, looking at quantitative data, as well as qualitative anecdotal information. I believe that good governance comes from that balance of quantitative and qualitative inputs. And so I have a lot of experience in that way of putting together a whole picture, of making data-informed decisions. Third, I'd like to think I'm a good communicator. I'm a warm, open, honest person, and I'd like to think that the parents who know me well in this community see me as a good advocate for them, as someone who will listen without judgment and represent their concerns, even if they don't necessarily align with my own, that I try to be a good parent advocate for different perspectives. So I'd say those are my 3 top skills that I would bring.
Thank you. And Tonya?
One of my skills is I'm really good at researching, and I have taken enough municipal law classes to understand how the legislative process works and how the laws get into our system and how the rules get written and how they should be aligned and applied in the district. So that's one of my skills, and I have 14, 15 years on the zoning board in this town. And another one of my skills is money. You know, and it was developed during this whole process, because this was not, 13 years of private school education cost $278,000. And so I learned to balance, and I learned funding sources, and I've learned I'm also the water and sewer bookkeeper for the city of Claremont. So I deal with policy and figures and equity issues on a daily basis over there. And it's a very rewarding job to be able to bring forth policies that really help people. And so I would be happy to transfer that information. And the third skill I have that I have developed and learned is the ability to say yes and not no. Yes, 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 we can make that happen for you. So, and I think that it's a skill that is based in experience of having so many people say no, that I have learned why. So to question and to get the information necessary in order to say yes to people is a skill that I'm really happy about. So those are the three that I think that I would really be able to help the board.
Okay, thank you. And Chris, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, one thing is I'm usually able to find the information that is necessary for a discussion. That being said, I also can usually see both sides of an argument, so I'm able to be convinced. I don't come in with a closed mind. If it's for instance, going back to what we were saying earlier. With the board, if I disagreed, very good chance I could vote with the board because I'm open-minded and I'm not going to come in with again a closed mind. And then probably the best thing is I'm not the decision making. It's not emotional to me. It's fact-based. So I'm able to take the data and see what is necessary to make things happen. So.
Okay, thank you. And Ed?
I think, 3 skills, I start with sort of my financial background. I've spent my entire career in accounting and finance. So, I've been able to sort of build my skills on explaining financial models and financial implications to people that may not have a strong financial background. I understand numbers. I enjoy working with them. Second one, I tend to be pretty even keeled. I think a lot of times bad decisions are made through emotions. So being able to take a step back from emotions and look at the information from all sides, remaining open-minded, usually leads to the best decisions. And then, again, sort of on top of that, being thoughtful, trying to think through, what are the unintended consequences of a decision being made? What are things that we're just not thinking about or we cannot see down the road, and how best to mitigate those.
Okay, thank you. Another question, this is from Christy Peck for all the panelists. And I think we've kind of touched on this before, so, but it's a little bit different. What are your thoughts on how we prioritize the social emotional needs of our kids as we return to normal? I think Ed spoke about this at some length, or a new normal after the pandemic. So why don't we start with Chris? Just to surprise you.
It's one of the most important aspects of the in-person education. That is certainly something that we struggled with in this house. Not being able to properly get out the emotions that they had, especially early on in the pandemic. It was very rough around here, April and May of last year, and it is so vitally important that the kids are able to go and have the outlet of the school, the counselor, and make sure that they have all the resources available to them. So I think, especially within the next few years, as important as the education itself. The social and emotional well-being of the children is vital. Like I said, especially within these next few years.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll go to Ed.
Sure. I think obviously over the last year, we've really been prioritizing sort of the bottom half of the Maslow hierarchy. And as we sort of come back, I think GVS is positioned to handle the emotional needs of the kids coming back very well, whether that be with some of their outdoor classrooms. I know even now the kindergarten goes outside in the woods and does lessons out there. I think more of that we can encourage as kids come back, getting them away from sort of the traditional in school, sitting at a desk doing work. One of the things that I think kids have also experienced a huge growth in is the amount of screen time they're on with, Zoom and trying to be socially distanced. I think the more that we can help encourage kids to get outside, get active, keep moving, learn lessons outside, I think will go a long way to, solving, or not solving, but, providing the emotional support the kids will need as they come back.
Okay, thank you. And Leslie?
The first thing that came to my mind was, as we've gone through the principal search process in the last few months, I think one of the biggest reasons Kristen Reed was just a unanimous choice for us is the way that she's already been such a compassionate, thoughtful, non-judgmental leader within the school. And so as I think about how we prioritize the students' social emotional health, we already sort of have in a lot of ways with Kristen at the helm, and Sydney absolutely takes credit sort of at the top of the food chain for a lot of what we've already done. And so when I think about moving forward and I think about Kristen's leadership along with Mrs. Widman, the guidance counselor, the classroom teachers, listening carefully to their feedback about the kids and them also listening to the students in a non-judgmental way. I'm with Chris that the first few months, frankly, actually, but even into the fall, I only have one elementary school aged son in 4th grade, and it was really hard for him. And so I think about us as adults need to approach this with with really open hearts and open minds. And that's why I bring up Kristen Reed's leadership. That's how she leads. Because none of us were in 4th grade during a pandemic. And so we need to meet, again, I said this before, meet the kids where they are, really listen carefully without judging what's right, what's wrong. And then give them some of what Ed said, being outside. But I think, again, like how I would prioritize the social emotional health as we go into the new normal is really listening carefully to the kids. And then for me as a parent, listening carefully to the experts in the building who really do lead with their hearts on the outside. That's such a strength of GVS, is that it is a very open, caring place. And I can think of examples already in the sort of the depths of the pandemic that give me so much hope for how we will address our students of social emotional health moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And Tonya?
Yeah, so I'll give the elementary kids to the rest of the board. And I'll take on the middle school and high school kids because that's where my strengths are. I substitute taught in the middle school in Lebanon and in the high school, as well as the Hartford district. And I did that for 5 or 6 years. And so I see that on that level, the social emotional problems are a little bit different, especially as they go through the age of puberty and all of that. And I would assume because it is such a big deal in the middle school, especially, to really support the ability for them to get together in extracurricular stuff. So for our family, it was just go skiing in the winter. We all taught lessons a while back, and we took full advantage, and hopefully that mountain will be available for the kids in this area, as well as the other ski mountains, and just that, you know, encouraging and providing and giving the opportunity and supporting, you know, transportation to these venues so they can be in, you know, socially distanced outside playing, and as well as, you know, getting those needs met. And maybe also like having classes for the parents on like just, you know, input on how to recognize different issues, especially in their teenagers. And because Grantham has a, you know, a lot of them ride an hour on the bus both ways to school, it becomes, you know, they get isolated as well in the middle and high school. So those are some of the areas that I would like to see. Just the transportation issue in Grantham is difficult. And so just to maybe think about how we could support transportation and carpooling to get the kids together into areas where they can play. And
Okay.
we do have rec park, and I walk down there but rarely see anybody. So we have facilities and we have areas we could do it. We just have to be able to, you know, let them know that this is it's important. They'll figure it out.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions, and I'm a little bit ambivalent about whether to ask this, but a couple of people have asked it, so I'm going to put it out there. And basically, there are a couple of people that are asking about your positions on the playground bond. I think we've already heard from Leslie, who's on the board, but maybe you can say something more. But I guess the way that this one is worded a little bit more less directly. Can you tell the community what your sense of the playground bond is?
Or Carl, do you want me to go first? Or
Sure, sure. You go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to think of where to start. I'm very obviously, I mean, you know, in the public record is very supportive of trying to pass this playground bond. A number of longer term community members have spoken to the inevitability of needing a new playground. A big part of why we chose to move to Grantham a few years ago was to live in the outdoors and live the 603 life. And our school is one of the top in the state. And to imagine being an extraordinary school that has a playground that's not accessible for a lot of the year seems really counterintuitive to me as an educator and a parent. And so the issues we're facing with the playground bond are larger than playground equipment. It's larger than replacing monkey bars, because the real problem with the playground is the drainage problem and the site work that needs to be done. And as Sydney said, we don't have a lot of options that will cost us any less, right? The existing area is already a playground and needs to be basically remediated and brought into compliance with the ADA. So it's something that's going to need to happen. I think those of us who are parents, and honestly, it transcends the parent issue. I want my son Barrett to be able to play outside year round, but I also feel like as a community member, it benefits all of us to have a fully functioning school facility, including a playground where our kids can be outside and be healthy and be active and have that experience. So I'm in support of it. It's okay with me. I actually put it top of my priority list for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is getting my fourth grader outside to play.
Okay. Ed?
I mean, I would agree with Leslie. I think a couple of things as we transition kids back, and, you know, again, with this whole social emotional well-being and trying to get them active and engaged and away from just sort of what they've experienced for the last year. a playground would be instrumental to that, although it's going to take some time for it to roll out. That being said, on the flip side of it, if you just look at some of the numbers, it makes a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, we're talking an interest rate of around 1.25%. Money's not going to get any cheaper than it is now. I mean, and then if you sort of roll this out going forward, it's essentially, you know, on an average home price of $300,000, you're looking at $60 a year or $5 a month. And sort of in my thought process of coming to a decision on, you know, if I support it or not, I really just simple ask the one question is, you know, would I spend $5 a month to have my child have access to a playground year round? And, you know, seeing that we pay more than that for Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and everything else, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. So, you know, overall, I think it's a slam dunk. It's something that the board and the town should definitely pursue.
Okay, thank you. And Chris?
Yes, I would have supported the bond were I on the board for that vote. Watching and especially Dr. Leggett talk about the efforts she put in and all of the research and the contracts and everything that she went through trying to figure out what was the best course of action. This is what was presented, and the board decided that this was the best course of action. I absolutely support it. My only worry is, as a town voter, that there are 3 $500,000 bonds this time around. That's the only worry that I have. It's a big ask of the community. So that being said, you know, that's a voter issue as opposed to a school board member issue. But so that's where I stand on that.
Okay. And Tonya.
So when I was on the building committee back, whenever that was, the main issue was there's a septic system out there in that area with the drainage issue is. And we looked into the drainage issue at that time, and it was very expensive. So I guess for me as a school board, that I would much rather, not that I'm against the playground, because God knows I love that playground. But I would rather see the money go to support every child in this district getting an education in an appropriate manner than to take the money and use it to improve the playground. There is a playground. It's not ideal. It's not the best. It's not state of the art, but it's a place for the kids to get out and play. And yeah, it may need to be brought up to standards, but also I would suggest that if the GBS parents want a playground, then have some bake sales, or, you know, raise your money to have your playground and leave the community out of it. Make it so that if that's something that those parents really want, then for their kids, then let them build it. But I don't think we should ask my neighbors to support that, you know, when they have other issues to support. And I don't want it. Yeah. So it would have to be a really good plan. And I do appreciate the fact that it's a low interest rate, but I also appreciate the fact that we have members of our community that are really struggling as just to get their basic needs taken care of. And again, the school parents are young and they're working and have that disposable income. So I don't know how. That's political. You give me all the kids in the district paid for, and I'll support your playground.
Believe me, I tried to not ask that question, but too many people asked it, so I had to do it. The final question is, what have we learned from the last year in terms of educating our youth? And how should that affect the future curricula? That sounds like a thesis, but who would like to start off with that? How about Ed?
I mean, honestly, what I've learned over the last year is there are a lot more methods to solving math problems and reading problems than I remember as a kid in elementary school. But in all honesty, I think, I think this has shown us that, our kids are resilient. While it hasn't been ideal, I think the community has come together the best they could to help shepherd this through. I also think it puts a spotlight on schools and teachers and just how vital they are to our children's education. I think, trying to do the remote learning, I think a lot of people got a firsthand knowledge of just, what a challenge that is. And hopefully a new appreciation for, the extraordinary work and that our teachers do every day. So I really believe it's coming together as a community, supporting our schools and, dealing with the social well-being of our students.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I learned the value of teachers is what I learned. At points, I mentioned earlier in April and May, where I'm going to use the word desperation came up. I realized how important it is for our students to have the dedicated teachers that they have at GVS. And I realized that it's not a strong suit for me. So going forward, the support that the teachers need to support our students, to be successful is what I think is the lesson learned from this past year. The social emotional well-being of the students, the education, everything will come so much from the interaction and guidance from the teachers, the faculty, the staff. So that is something that is just the vitally important.
Okay, thank you. And Tonya?
What did I learn from this last year? That
Right.
My particular student could not do online learning. He ended up dropping out of college. And so for him, I shouldn't say dropped out. He decided to take a different path instead of going and continuing in the online learning. He went and got more of an experiential learning school. So I think that might translate into the middle school and high school level again, that some kids, that's not an ideal environment and they really need more, oh my gosh, she's adorable, more experiential hands-on type learning. Oh, she's still in the show. You got it, girlfriend.
You're getting upstaged, yep.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'm very sorry.
Why? She's great. Hi. Yeah, send them skiing. That's what they need to do. They need to go skiing and learn about physics and environmental science and things like that on the mountain.
Okay. Leslie, do you have a response to that?
Sure. For me, I agree with a lot of what Chris said, particularly have said, and actually, Tonya, you and I agree about like experiential education as well. For me, though, one of my big takeaways is the importance of differentiated instruction as we move into the new normal. And what I mean by that is capturing students' strengths where we can. It's sort of how we will help build the social emotional health and the resilience is the more that you have differentiated instruction in a classroom, the more you're capturing someone's verbal strengths, someone's visual strengths, someone's kinesthetic strengths. And a lot of our teachers at GVS are already really good at that, but it's really something that I've watched and thought about over the course of this year that I think will really inform our curricular approaches, is making sure that there is differentiated instruction. And another piece of that, I sort of alluded to this, is like the multi-sensory, multimodal aspect of education. Again, that's a way to capture the strengths of students so that they really, I think what's going to be so important is for them to feel like they have toeholds in 5 days a week of school, and like building their momentum and building their rhythm. And so when you are teaching to different modalities, because we know different students have different strengths, different ways that they hold on to learning. I think that's going to be a really important way that we, again, meet the students where they are, because their disparities have really pulled apart. Even though we've been lucky to be 4 days instruction since November, we're going to really be addressing a lot of academic and social gaps. And so building resilience through curricular approaches that are creative and multimodal is going to be, I think, really important.
Thank you. I think that that's all the questions we have, and I see it's about 8:30. This has been a really lively discussion, and I appreciate all who have. I see there are 50 participants here, so that's quite a turnout. I think that's one of the larger turnouts for a candidate tonight that I've ever seen. So before I close this out, or before I turn it over to Dr. Leggett, I just want to mention the fact that I'm also running for school district moderator, which I do every year. However, at some point I'm going to retire, and I just want to put that out there, that if anybody is interested in taking on the position of being school district moderator, I would appreciate a call or an email or something. I would be very open to that idea, and the idea of mentoring a little bit. That would be great. So with that, Sydney, I'll turn it over to you. We can close this out, or?
Thanks, Carl. I just wanted to say, just before we say goodnight, that Jim Walkerman had lost internet and he is back on. So I wanted to see if anybody who is out there had a question for Jim, and I can bring him back in as a panelist. So just let me know if there's anything that you'd like to ask him.
And he's running for the trustee of trust funds position.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any questions.
Not seeing any.
Yeah.
Okay. And Carl, you can't leave until we actually get to do this the real way in the gym and in the town hall again.
We'll see. Okay. Well, thank you all. And we will see you later.
Bye, Carl.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.